The recording is going to be for our webinar series for anyone else who would like to watch this session. Crossroads School has identified that nutrition is look, every school has identified this, but Crossroads in particular right now has identified that nutrition is a fundamental part of our children's diets, and what needs to be in their diets and what isn't in their diets, and what we need to be seeing more of in their diets. So we contacted Inga Bothner and asked her if she, Inga's a nutritionist. We've asked her to give us a general overview of nutrition. We are not making assumptions that everyone knows. So this is going to be an introduction to what nutrition is. Inga's going to give us the formal, general, broad spectrum overview. She is not going to be speaking about specific children or specific issues. She will be contactable by yourselves afterwards if you would like to be in touch with her, and she will give you more of a focused one-on-one view. And then in the third term, this is leading into what we are going to be doing in the third term, where we will invite a dietitian who has a different skill set, who will speak to specifics around children who are on medication and who have different needs, and she will then be able to speak to that element. So welcome this evening. Thank you very much for making the time to be here. I hope you have a cup of tea or a glass of wine sitting next to you to enjoy this session as you listen to Inga. Inga is a nutritionist. Her experience has been in catering and events and coordination and nutrition, and she has a very good skill set and understanding of what's needed, what we're missing, and also how we can make it part of our everyday lives, how we can create the system for ourselves that works, by, I suppose, building step by step into what we can help ourselves with as families, because it's not always easy, and we know that. So we're not coming from a high and mighty place. We're all human, and we're families, and we get it, but it's about trying to achieve the best we can. So Inga, welcome, and thank you very much for taking the time to be with us this evening and to present to us. I am going to monitor the chat, so anyone who has questions, please just pop your question in the chat. We'll do questions at the end. Inga will run through from beginning to end. She's got quite a lot to get through, so yeah, please bear with us, and I hope you enjoy the evening. Thank you very much. Thanks, Inga.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time listening to us, to me this evening. Yeah, my name is Inga Bothner, and I'm also a mum. I've got Alexander, who is 14, my son, and then I've got a daughter, Emma, who is turning 17 tomorrow. So that'll be a big day. So I know what it's like. I've been there. I'm still there. Trying to get the family to eat healthy food, and teaching good habits to our kids is a real journey, and it's hard work. It's always easier giving in. And my daughter in particular was a very fussy eater when she was younger. So I do know where you're all at. And I just want to say to you that primary school, where your kids are now, is such a perfect time to really lay those foundations and to start, teaching your kids what a healthy diet is and why it's important that we give our bodies the right nutrients. It's just like a car can't run on the wrong petrol or no petrol. Our bodies are exactly the same. And primary school is so ideal, really, for a few reasons. The kids are at an age where they understand the basics of nutrition. Even the little ones can understand it. And the other thing is that you still have quite a lot of control over what they eat. And that really changes in high school and beyond. And therefore, if you manage to teach them now and to just instill good choices and good behavior, then that is really such a beneficial thing you can give to them for their lives. And of course, modeling those choices along the road is also really important, not just telling them what to do, but doing it yourself. But here are some of the things I'm going to be talking about. So language is very important when it comes to food. We should never be talking about fattening food, or we must always talk about healthy or unhealthy food. And that's really something that we need to get used to, because we're also conditioned. Many of us have feelings of guilt when we eat food that's bad for us. And I think we need to have positive language around that, with so many eating disorders around, and now your kids are just entering the age when some of that could be starting. And, the body image through social media and everything we didn't need to deal with when we were younger. There's really a lot in our children's world. So important that we model that behavior and that we have positive language around food, and also not discussing restrictive diets too much, because if you're eating healthy food, you should never have to be hungry. You should just eat something that's good for you and that will nourish your body. The other thing, of course, that we're all very familiar with is the fact that, we have limited time. I know a lot of you are working mums and dads, and that these meals just have to be produced all the time, and it's relentless. It never stops. Alongside that are also budget restraints for many of you. And I'm just going to be sharing with you a few tips on how to plan ahead and what you can do, and also a few comparisons about how you can save some money, and showing you what costs more and what costs less. So hopefully you'll find that useful. Then I also know that many of you are dealing with children with ADD and ADHD, and some kids have sensory difficulties with texture of food. So I'm going to be going a little bit into that. I'm probably going to leave quite a lot for the dietitian, because that's more of a specialized area, but I'll certainly be giving you a few tips and touching on some of that as well. And then I'm going to be talking about why we need to insist that our children absolutely have a healthy, balanced breakfast in the morning, and why treats and unhealthy food, junk food, can't replace meals, and why treats have to follow a meal and not replace it. Having a healthy meal should fall in the same category as brushing teeth. You wouldn't allow your kids to go to bed without brushing their teeth, and you shouldn't allow them to go to school without a healthy breakfast. And that should really be non-negotiable, because for children, it's very difficult to concentrate when they just have this spike and drop in blood sugar. But I'll tell you more about that in a minute. I'm also going to be sharing some ideas for breakfasts, since I'm helping on about that, and also for lunch boxes, because that's something that's just the bane of our lives for all of us. And I know the feeling. We always have to come up with ideas, and often we just pick up the little packets in the supermarket aisle and just stick them in the lunchbox because it's quick and easy, but they often don't give our kids what they need in order to learn and function. So I'm going to start with an overview of the food groups, and please bear with me on this, because I know lots of you know what the food groups are, and I just want to give you a little bit more detail and some of the science behind it, so that you understand not only, we all know that there's healthy and unhealthy food, but maybe also the why we need certain food and we shouldn't be having other types of food. So the food groups, I think most of you know, are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Those make up the macronutrients, and then we've got vitamins and minerals, and those are the micronutrients. So I'm going to start talking about carbohydrates. There are two types of carbohydrates, that are simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. And some of you might already know which one are the ones that we should be aiming for and that are healthy for us. But if you don't, then you're definitely going to know it once I'm done with this. So I'm going to start with simple carbohydrates. So examples of simple carbohydrates are white bread and white potato products, chips and bash and all of those, white rice and all the white pasta, but also sugar and maple syrup and honey and cakes and cookies and fizzy drinks and anything that gives our body the quick fix of sugar that it does. So I want to start talking about simple carbohydrates. So simple carbohydrates are they give us immediate energy. So the glucose enters the bloodstream really rapidly, and it causes a spike in blood sugar and like the rocket taking off. But the problem is that our body uses it immediately. So that's the sugar rush, and then it crashes, and that leaves us tired and with little energy. And it also triggers a new craving because your body has now used up all the glucose and it's tired, so it craves more energy. So it also signals that it wants more of exactly those simple carbohydrates. But they are what I like to call empty calories. So empty calories are basically foods that make you feel full and they give you energy, but they don't give you any or very little nutrition. And in the case of products made from white flour, they've basically had their B vitamins, their chromium, their fiber, all the goodness out of it removed. And all you're left with is the refined carbohydrates, which basically act as a sugar in your body. So we really must try and avoid those as much as we can. The complex carbohydrates, on the other hand, are your brown rice and whole wheat bread and nuts and seeds and all your legumes, your beans, your chickpeas and lentils and all of those. And then also lots of many different vegetables, carrots, they're all, oh, sorry, I went too fast there. But those are all your complex carbohydrates. I think you get the picture. So the difference with complex carbohydrates is that they also give you immediate energy, just like the simple carbohydrates do. But they, the energy of the glucose is released slowly into the blood sugar, into the blood, and therefore it doesn't cause that spike and then also that crash afterwards. And that's really important because it gives you longer term energy. And what happens is the body actually converts the glucose that's not immediately needed for energy into glycogen. And that glycogen gets stored in your muscles and in your liver, and you can draw on it again when you need energy again. And so it doesn't cause that vicious cycle because slow release of glucose. And then when your body needs more energy, it just converts the glycogen back into glucose and it uses it. And your body can probably store that for about a day. So you can draw on it, throughout the day. And the other thing, of course, is it curbs your cravings because it doesn't cause that drop in blood sugar. And another thing the drop in blood sugar, of course, also does is it makes you feel terrible. It makes you cranky and you absolutely can't concentrate on it. So that's the complex carbohydrates for you. And try and change wherever you can and convert, where you're used to having simple carbohydrates, try and change it so that you now use the complex carbohydrates. So that's things like, white bread, if you feel that going from white to low GI is too much of a jump, then start with brown bread, the sliced brown bread, and then go to whole wheat, and then eventually end up at low GI. Best, of course, is whole wheat breads from smaller bakeries that are not commercially baked, commercially produced, because they just have fewer preservatives and ingredients generally. And actually, while I'm talking about that, get used to reading food labels, because often, the marketing can be so deceiving and something looks healthy. And actually, when you then read the label, you realize that there isn't much goodness in it. So that's something that I really recommend you start doing. And then, of course, your white rice, change it to brown rice. And again, you can do it gradually. You can even mix a bit of brown in initially and then gradually increase the amount of brown. And the same with the whole wheat pasta, if you don't think that, because the texture is slightly different, a little bit more chewy. So if you think that your family is not going to be happy with that, then just introduce it slowly. So that's your carbohydrates. Then next, I'm going to be telling you about proteins. Food containing proteins, as you know, are meats and fish and eggs and nuts and seeds and many fruits and vegetables as well. But protein is a really important part of our diet. Every cell in our body contains protein, and our body needs it to grow, to repair cells, to make new cells. It's a critical part of the process that converts our food to energy. It helps carry oxygen through our blood. It really has so many functions, even antibodies to fight off infection. So I think you get the picture. It's very important. Proteins are made up of amino acids, and amino acids are broken down into essential and non-essential amino acids. And that basically just means that the non-essential ones are the ones that our bodies can make, and the essential ones are the ones that we have to consume through food. And there are about 20 in total amino acids, and of those, 11 are non-essential and our bodies can make, and 9 of them are essential. So it's important that those are eaten daily, and protein should form part of every meal and every snack that you're serving your children. That's really important, and it also helps keep them full for a bit longer. But just to give you a bit of a guideline of how much protein do we need. So a growing child needs about 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. So that's, and I've listed a few items here just so you know what's contained in different foods. I'm just going to put them all up and then I can just talk through them. So a cup of milk, 8 grams. Eggs is great. That's why it's a great breakfast food as well. Cottage cheese is actually an excellent source of protein. Chicken is great. The highest protein content is in the breast. That's because it doesn't have a lot of fat. And beef is also a great source of protein. Just a little note, if you're buying ground beef, it comes with different fat contents. So basically, the more fat it has, the less protein it has. And that drops pretty quickly. So try and use the lean mince if you can. And then kidney beans and, all your pulses are great for protein, and obviously the nuts and seeds and all of that as well. And then I'm going to be talking a little bit about fats. Now, fats have a really bad name. Many of us grew up being told that fat is bad for you, and that really isn't the case. Not with all fats. There are fats that we absolutely need for life, and there is other types of fat that we should only have a little bit of, and then others that we should avoid completely. I'm going to start by talking about saturated fats. Before I do that, actually, I wanted to tell you that fat is our next source of energy. After carbohydrates have been used up, the body then starts converting fat to energy. And the other thing is also that some vitamins can only be absorbed in the presence of fat. So that's vitamin A, D, E, and F. They can't be absorbed by the body if there's no fat present. So fat is important. So saturated fats are going to be the first one I talk about. These come mainly from red meat, animal products like cheese, butter. You recognize it by it being solid at room temperature, and when it's liquid when you heat it up. And saturated fats are actually crucial to life, crucial to health, but they should only form about 10% of the total intake of fat. And many of us, of course, have way too much saturated fats in our diet. The reason it's bad for us is because it's because it contains LDL cholesterol. That's the bad cholesterol, and too much LDL can lead to high cholesterol and heart disease, high blood pressure, because it settles in our arteries and clogs them up. Next, I'm going to be talking about unsaturated fat. So that's your avocados and all the vegetable oils, olive oil, your nuts and seeds, even eggs and fish and chicken contains mostly unsaturated fat. The reason it's called unsaturated is that it basically refers to the double bonds that they have in their chemical structure. And they are recognized, you can recognize them, they are liquid at room temperature. So all the vegetable oils, for example. Just a note on that, the vegetable oils are not good for a very high temperature. So because basically the high temperature destroys the very fragile double bonds that they have in their chemical structure, and it makes them harmful. So if you're frying food at high temperature, you shouldn't be using those. Use coconut oil or lard or ghee or something like that. Unsaturated fats actually increase your HDL cholesterol, so that's the good cholesterol. And what it does is it goes and it removes the LDL cholesterol from your tissues and moves it to the liver, where it can then be removed from the body. So very, very important. And it's crucial for growth and development and brain function and all of those things. The most important ones, and I want to just spend a few minutes talking about, are the omegas. I'm sure you've all heard about omega-3 and 6. They are very important for brain function again, and for growth and development. So the issue with 3 and 6 is that they have to work in a ratio. It should be ideally 1-to-1, but even up to 4-to-1 is fine. And that's 4 of omega-6 to 1 of omega-3. But we tend to get way too much omega-6 in our diets. Omega-6 is still good for us. So the idea is not necessarily to reduce the omega-6, but to increase the omega-3. Because otherwise they're not working together in the same ratio, and they can't do what they need to do, and it causes inflammation and all sorts of problems. Omega-3 can be found in vegetable sources. It's your chia seeds and flax seeds and walnuts. They're all good sources of omega-3. But the problem is that the far superior form of omega-3 is oily fish. So that's your mackerel, anchovies, sardines, salmon, herring, all of those types of fish. And really, you should be having those 2 to 3 times a week in order to have any kind of balance of these two fats. And of course, the problem is that especially kids often are not mad about the oily fish. So I generally feel that I'm not a fan of supplements, and especially for children, it's much better for them to just get all their nutrients from food, from a balanced diet. But in the case of oily fish and omega-3, if you can't get them to eat it several times a week, then I really would recommend that you look into a good supplement there. They're those oily capsules, or the capsules with oil in it. They're quite big, and most kids probably wouldn't be able to swallow them, but it also comes in a liquid lemon flavored oil. I think just ask your local pharmacist what he would recommend, and try and see if you can't incorporate that. And then the last fat I want to tell you about is trans fats. Now, trans fats are sometimes also called hydrogenated fat or partially hydrogenated fat. What it basically is the artificial form of a saturated fat. So what they do is they take an unsaturated fat, usually a vegetable oil, and they saturate those double bonds that it has with hydrogen molecules, and that means that this vegetable oil is now going to be solid at room temperature, and it really isn't very good for you. So you find it in your margarine, all the sort of the baked items, the commercially baked items like cakes and cookies and all the commercially baked goods, basically, and it just extends their shelf life. If you think about it, if you baked a muffin at home, after a day, it probably goes a bit hard, or 2 days. And if you were to try and keep it in a plastic Ziploc packet, like, you know, the plastic that they wrap the commercially baked goods in, then it's probably going to go moldy after a couple of days. And of course, with the cakes we buy that are packaged, they keep a really long time, and that's because they contain trans fat. Same for microwave popcorn. I don't know if you've ever opened a packet of microwave popcorn, but I recommend that you do one day, and you'll be quite shocked to see what it looks like. But another thing I wanted to tell you about trans fats is your deep fried fast foods, so chips and things like that, anything that's deep fried. Because they deep fry in often vegetable oil, what happens when you heat vegetable oil to an extremely high temperature for deep frying, it actually creates trans fats. And each time it gets reheated, it creates more trans, or the higher proportion of trans fat. So that's, and these fast food outlets, I don't know how often they change their oil or how often they reheat it, but my guess would be quite a few times. So it's good just to be aware. I'm not saying never eat a French fry again in your life. It's not realistic. I also have them sometimes, and it's, you know, part of life. But just, I think it's important to know what you're eating and to limit that type of food and not have it replace your normal standard meals. Last thing I want to tell you about trans fats is, just like saturated fats, because the double bonds have been hydrogenated, they have LDL cholesterol, so the bad cholesterol, and it causes inflammation and causes all the same issues that I explained earlier with saturated fats. So avoid them at all costs if you can. Next, I want to talk to you about vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. So vitamins and minerals, we need them for all sorts of functions that our body has to perform, to build bones, to make blood, to fight infection, to heal wounds, again, to get energy out of our fats and carbohydrates and proteins. We need vitamins and minerals for all of those processes. Some can be stored in our livers for later use, but others, like vitamin Bs, the B vitamins, and vitamin C, actually have to be consumed daily. You can't, your body can't store them. And again, much better to be getting all of these things through a balanced diet than through supplements. Superfoods, it's one of those buzzwords, and we always think of it as expensive. It basically just means a highly nutrient dense food. So anything that with every bite gives you a whole lot of nutrients can be classified as superfood. So it doesn't always have to be your, you know, fancy, expensive goji berries, but broccoli, carrots, spinach, they're all superfoods because they are packed with vitamins and with nutrients. And antioxidants, I just wanted to explain quickly, they basically just repair our body cells, and they rid the body of, they eliminate free radicals. And you find them in blueberries and kale and strawberries and a whole list of food, pecan nuts, and even dark chocolate, actually. So that's the good news. So you can have some chocolate and feel okay about it, but it's got to be the dark kind. I want to talk about some cost-saving ideas. So firstly, buy what's in season. I think that's really important. I think it also teaches our kids, you know, seasonal, what's growing at the moment, and besides saving you money, because you're obviously not paying for the transport of having it flown in, you're also being environmentally friendly and reducing your carbon footprint. So that's definitely good. Buy in bulk from your local greengrocer. Cook and freeze portions. I sometimes, the other day, I made a big pot of bolognese sauce, and I literally put in a whole packet of grated carrots and a whole bunch of celery, and I just, you know, let it cook for ages, and onions and lots of garlic and all the good stuff, and I freeze it in portions. And when I know I'm going to have one of those days where I'm just not going to have time to cook a meal from scratch when I get home. I take it out in the morning, it can defrost slowly all day, and I know all I have to do is cook some whole wheat pasta and grate some Parmesan, and I'm serving a healthy home-cooked dinner. And try and build up a stock a little bit with things like that. You know, your winter stews are great for that, and they're great for getting lots of veggies in as well. But it works for curries and it works for chili con carne. You know, you can hide a lot of veggies in all of those. So try and get into a habit of just spending a couple of Sundays in a row building up some stock. It's really worth it. And then I've made some, you know, we always have this conception that healthy food is really expensive, and I've just drawn some comparisons here. For example, you know, a McDonald's meal for a family of 5, and I've based it on 3 Happy Meals and 2, you know, adult size but normal meals, not upsized ones. And the bolognese sauce I just told you about, including the pasta and a whole packet of carrots, and I've thrown everything into the price. And you're saving over 100 Rand, and you'll probably have some sauce left over after dinner as well. So definitely cheaper. And remember, the biggest waste of money, of course, is that you're not only spending more money on the McDonald's meals or whichever fast food outlet you want to choose, but you're not getting anything for it because it's mostly empty calories. So you've actually not gotten anything for your money. Blueberries, just as an example, you know, we know they're very expensive at Woolworths when you buy them fresh. But if you get them frozen from your greengrocer, you pay 110 Rand for a kilogram. And sometimes locally, I don't know if you get it, but there are people who sell them directly for the farms, and that's even half of that price, I think. And you can just buy a whole box and freeze them at home. And the great thing about frozen berries is also that they have an excellent vitamin content because they're frozen straight, you know, they're picked and immediately fresh frozen. So they actually have a great vitamin content, as do other fruit and veggies that you buy frozen. So that's another, you know, thing to do to save time. It doesn't necessarily save money, but to save time with frozen vegetables. Then I've done a comparison on oats, and I just want to show you, because oats are actually a great breakfast. I just want to explain to you a little bit about oats. So it starts out with the steel cut oats. I don't know if they're not available everywhere. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they almost look like a grain. You can get them at Woolworths sometimes, and otherwise at the health stores. And you have to cook them for about 30 minutes. And who's got time for that in the morning? Nobody does. But you can actually cook them the night before. You can put them in a Tupperware. You can keep them in the fridge, keep it in the fridge for up to 5 days quite easily. And you just microwave what you need in the morning. So that would be the most nutritious form of oat, is a steel cut oat. What then happens is they would take that steel cut oat and steam it and roll it. And that's when the shape changes to the little flake, like the rolled oat that you're used to. The downside being that a few of the nutrients do get lost in that steaming process. And then the way they make quick cook oats is just by continuously steaming and rolling the rolled oat. And every time you do that, it becomes quicker to cook at the other end, but it also loses nutrients. So quick cook oats are not only more expensive, but they also have far fewer nutrients. And even rolled oats you can cook in advance and just heat up in the microwave the next morning. So really, it's quite easy to do. And just stay away from those packets. Oh, it's so easy, and they're different brands. I'm not trying to pick on any brands, by the way. It's just what came to mind. But those little sachets of flavored oats, they just have a lot of flavorants and sugar and all sorts of other ingredients in them. And so they're not only very expensive, but they're also not very good for you. And then the last comparison I've made is chicken nuggets versus chicken breast. And I've taken the free-range chicken breast from Woolworths to do the price comparison. But frozen chicken nuggets are more expensive, believe it or not, than a fresh free-range chicken breast. for the same weight. And of course, in the chicken nugget, I think they had said on the packet 56% chicken. And that's, of course, highly processed and probably not very good quality. And then it's breaded. So that just adds insult to injury on that note. So much better to stick with the chicken, and it's also healthier for you. You know, some of the other options, I know low GI bread is more expensive than your sliced white bread, but think about it, you need far fewer slices, and again, you're getting something for your money. You're not buying empty calories that actually don't give you anything. But again, I think I said it earlier, but really get used to reading labels. You will be amazed what is in some of these products, which you always thought were healthy and are marketed as healthy. And when you read, you know, a red flag is always those long lists of items that you actually need specialist knowledge to even know what it is. One of the things that come to mind is TBHQ. It's a petroleum-based preservative. Doesn't sound great, does it? But it's in a lot of potato crisps, and it's in a lot of roast nuts, because I guess once the nuts are commercially roasted, they'll go rancid more quickly, so they need a preservative. So even, you know, with those kind of items, you can roast them yourself at home, and buy raw nuts. And they're cheaper from your greengrocer, and there are lots of little stores around that where you can buy them in bulk, and they're much cheaper. So hopefully some of those things will help you. I also want to just quickly talk about ADD and ADHD, and like I said, your dietitian who's going to do a talk to you will go into much more detail. But we know that unhealthy food can't cause ADD or ADHD, but we also know that there's a link, that unhealthy food can exacerbate symptoms, and that certain foods can also make symptoms worse. And sometimes extensive testing is needed to find out what it is for your child, but it's generally things like food coloring and artificial flavorings and added MSG, but it can even be things like chocolate or cow's milk or oranges. So it can be very individual as well. But once you start reading labels, and you'll probably, you might be able to pick up some links. And then there are some nutrients that can just be helpful. And again, the omega-3 is very helpful. If you think of the brain function link, obviously it will help with concentration. Iron-rich foods are important. That's your legumes, you know, all the beans and chickpeas and lentils and all of those. Lean red meat, green leafy vegetables, nuts, they're all excellent sources of iron. And then again, very, very important to keep that blood sugar balanced, and have, you know, a combination of complex carbohydrates, good fats, and protein. And the breakfast in the lunch boxes, because it's very hard for these kids to function well and behave well at school and learn and absorb what they're being told, if they're operating on low blood sugar levels because they haven't had a proper breakfast. So yes, I think having heard all of that, it's obvious to all of us that we need nutritious food in order for our bodies to function. But the challenge is, of course, how do we get our kids on board? Like I said, I'm going to be talking to your children on Wednesday, and I hope that I manage to get some of these things I've told you about now across, and inspire them a little bit and make them understand why it's important. And I know they've already been learning it at school, so hopefully they'll have some base knowledge already. But maybe, you know, if you can talk to your kids and agree on, say, an 80-20 rule, that you're going to have as a family 80% of nutritious food and healthy food, and then the 20% can be, you know, your meal a week that's going to be a treat, that's a takeaway food or a fast food, or, you know, it can be desserts, it can be, I'm not saying don't ever give your kids treats, that's not realistic, And that wouldn't be a very pleasant way of living either, but just insist on the healthy food first, and then we can talk about treats. And again, model that behavior. Our kids are very clever. They pick up the, do as I do and not as do as I say and not as I do. So we do have to actually do as we say as well. And teach them smart choices, tell them that they can have some sort of control for them to decide when they have something that's not good for them, but they can't start out with a bowl of Cocoa Pops and then have a donut at school because it's someone's birthday, and in the afternoon have a packet of chips, and then have a junk food dinner. That's just a recipe for disaster. And I think it's really important that they understand that, and that habit is being broken if it's there. And it's never too late. If you're thinking, oh, I've been doing this all wrong, it's fine. It's never too late to start, and also be patient. It might take a while, and it might have to be baby steps. Maybe you decide as a family that every week you're going to pick up one new healthy habit, and maybe you decide as a family, and when you sit down at dinner, say, what's it going to be for next week? And I think if your children feel empowered to be part of those decisions, then hopefully you can make some progress. And for the smaller kids as well, a great thing to do is a star chart, a healthy day or a healthy week or whatever you want to make it, with a reward at the end, would also be a fun thing to do. And then, of course, a lot of you are dealing with other challenges like loss of appetite during medication or due to medication. Of course, it makes, again, the breakfast, I know I keep harping on about it, but the breakfast is so important. Obviously the meds would have worn off from the previous night, and hopefully you're able to give them the medication at breakfast, so that they still have an appetite when they sit down and have that meal. And I don't know what schedule of meds your kids are on, but if they come home after school and they just can't face food, then that's fine. You can't force them to eat, and you shouldn't ever force them to eat. But again, insist on them having healthy food when they can tolerate it again. And it's not going to be easy, because a lot of the time that not having appetite is probably comparable to us being in a restaurant and we've just eaten a huge meal and we can't have another bite of our main course, but the waiter comes with a dessert menu and we suddenly get tempted and we order it and we eat it and enjoy it. And I think your kids sometimes feel exactly that. They just can't think of another bite of the main course, but they're quite happy to have something sweet or something unhealthy. And breaking that habit is not easy, but it's like brushing the teeth. I think you have to just insist on it. And when they're hungry, that they have a little bit of something that's healthy, and then you can negotiate after that. And another thing that some of you might also be struggling with is texture issues. And I understand that it's very different to a picky eater. I think that actually causes them physical or psychological pain to have certain textures in their mouths. And, again, you can't force them, and you shouldn't force them to eat anything, and make sure that they know that you understand their issues, but find ways of introducing new foods. Again, reward them when they do manage to eat something new, a new food item. What you can also do is sort of baby steps at the first day. Maybe they just touch it and they're involved maybe in the food preparation. And then the next day, maybe they lick it. And then the next day, maybe they put it in their mouths, but they're allowed to spit it out. And eventually, hopefully, they'll be able to chew and swallow it. And then you can celebrate with them. Again, talking about getting kids involved, maybe the holiday coming up is actually a good time to start introducing some of these new habits when you're not all rushing around, but you maybe have some time together. Maybe even get them to choose between 2 or 3 options of a healthy meal for that evening or the next day, and it makes them feel empowered and part of the process. And maybe they can even help you shop for it and help you prepare it. Yeah, that might be something to think about. I'm going to go through some actual ideas of meals now, of breakfasts. So cooked oats, I talked about oats earlier, but that's you know, a really good start to the day. You can add some fruits, some nuts, berries, whatever you like. Boiled egg and soldiers with whole wheat bread, obviously, but that's a great start to the day as well. Whole wheat toast with avocado and maybe even some feta cheese for the more adventurous. Some kids might also enjoy. You can make a smoothie at home, you know, with banana, nut butter, yogurt. You know, you can add a few different things and just make them in your food processor or NutriBullet or whatever you have at home. That's also great. I've got some more ideas. So yeah, I actually make this nut mix. In fact, that's a picture of the one I made yesterday. So you take a whole lot of different nuts and seeds and you heat them up. You heat up a little bit of coconut oil and add lots of cinnamon and ground cinnamon and ginger, and then you heat up the nuts gently in it and then put them in the oven at about 160 degrees for about 10 minutes. And then you let it drain on some kitchen towel like that, and you can just put it in a Tupperware, and it keeps for weeks on end. And it tastes really delicious with some fruit and yogurt, or even on top of some oats. I use it for everything, and I have done for years, and I haven't got tired of it yet. And the great thing is it hasn't got a single bit of flavoring or sugar or anything in it like the commercial mueslis often do. So if you like, give that a try. Chia seeds, you can soak them overnight in some almond milk or even in normal milk, cow's milk. Sounds quite exotic, but especially some kids with texture issues might actually enjoy those. They're good for protein and omega-3, and they're one of our superfoods. And you can add some berries if you like, or some fruit the next day. Another thing you can do with oats is soak them overnight, and I usually use a mixture of milk and water. And then in the morning, I just add a grated apple and maybe some yogurt to loosen it up a bit. You can even add some raisins if you want the night before, and they all become all plump. And you can, you know, add some nuts if you like afterwards too. It keeps in the fridge for a good few days. My kids really like it. Again, it's a quick breakfast in the morning because you've already soaked it the night before. Beware of most packaged cereals. Most of them are highly processed and have lots of additives and sugar and are basically empty calories. So two that are not so bad are the Wheat Bix. You get the light version, which is just basically without sugar and salt. And the plain shredded wheat is also quite a good option, and just add some fruit and add some milk. If your kids are really used to the very sweet cereals in the morning, you know, their palate is going to take a while to get used to sort of the new regimes that I'm trying to encourage you to follow. And something you can also do, and the same if you're having sugar in tea or coffee, you know, if you're used to that flavor, just reduce it a little bit each day. And before you know it, you will actually be able to have all of those items without sugar added, because it's just a matter of getting our palates used to the different tastes. And if you do it gradually, they might not even notice. Then another one that they might actually quite enjoy is a banana pancake. So you just mash a banana and beat 2 eggs and mix it together, and you fry it like you would fry normal pancakes, and they taste delicious. And you can always add drizzle a little bit of maple syrup and add some other fruit, but at least you're getting the banana and the eggs into them, which would be nice. And just a note, if you are using yogurt for any of your breakfast items or lunchbox items,
like yogurt.
Yes.
With your cereals.
Then sorry, just something coming through there. A yogurt, always buy plain yogurt. The flavored yogurts are often full of colorants and flavorants and definitely full of sugars. So try and stay away from those. Those can be a dessert, if you're looking for a treat, but they shouldn't form part of your meals. And then I've got some lunchbox ideas as well. Firstly, you should always give them water to drink. Again, if they're used to having juice, then you can also do it gradually and water it down bit by bit, and then eventually, hopefully, they'll be able to just drink the water. And you can always add fruit, cucumber, lemon, orange, naartjie, whatever, to make it to give it a bit of a taste if you feel that your kids enjoy that better. Sliced apple and peanut butter, you got the fats, you got the protein, you got the fiber from the apple. It's a great snack for a lunchbox, and kids quite enjoy it if you pack it separately and they can dip the apple into the peanut butter. And of course, when you buy peanut butter, buy the one that has one ingredient in it, and that's peanuts. The other ones have emulsifiers and often palm oil and all sorts of things added, but you're going to notice now because you're going to be reading all those labels. The issue with the peanut butter that only has peanuts in it is that the oil, when you first buy it, sort of settles like the liquid oil on top, and it's a bit gross. But what you do is you just mix it, and it's a little bit of hard work the first time you open it, but you just mix it up, and then if you keep it in the fridge, it'll keep a long time, and it won't separate again if it's kept in the fridge. So you can then use it as normal peanut butter. Sliced banana and yogurt is a nice thing to add in a little Tupperware and your lunchbox. Hummus and some crudité, if lots of kids actually enjoy that and enjoy the crunchy texture. You can also do it with a yogurt dip if they prefer. Smoothies, again, like I did with the breakfast suggestion, you can put it in a little plastic bottle, and again, it just gives them a little bit of something a bit different. Just beware of those smoothies you buy in the supermarkets. Again, read the labels. They're often full of sugar and additives and things that you would never put in at home. So just beware of that. Fruit salad and some nuts on the side are also a great snack in your lunchbox. Whole wheat crackers or brown rice cakes with mashed avocado. Again, the avocado you should probably pack separately. Add a bit of lemon juice so it doesn't go all brown and yucky. And they can assemble it, and they really quite enjoy doing that. Tuna or chicken mayo on whole wheat bread. And what I do there often is that I actually use hummus and maybe a bit of yogurt, and you can add a little bit of mayonnaise if you want to get that creamy texture of a tuna mayo or a chicken mayo. And I promise you, it tastes delicious. You can't even taste the hummus, and they probably won't even notice, but you're not giving them commercial mayonnaise, you're giving them something more nutritious. So try that and see how you go. Again, you can increase it slowly. And then also remember, when we talked about proteins, we talked about cottage cheese being such a good source of protein. So you can also pack that again separately, so it doesn't make the crackers or ribena or whatever you're going to be putting in all soggy. So rather get them to assemble it at school. So yes, that's mainly covers what I wanted to tell you. It's not an easy road to travel. We all know which fork we should take. And I think as parents, we have a responsibility to teach our kids about nutrition and healthy habits, and they're going to keep those for life. And I know we say that as parents that they're going to thank you, but they really are going to thank you one day. Again, model the behavior, do as I do. And exercise is another thing that's really important, obviously coupled with this. Get off the screens, and we must get off our screens too, because we're all guilty of the same thing. So that's something to be aware of. What else did I want to tell you? Portion size. I talked a lot about not forcing kids to eat, but also equally teach them when they're full that they should stop. It normally takes about 20 minutes for the chemical in our brain to be released to signal that we're full after we start eating. So that's something to be aware of and to teach them as well. Again, language, healthy food, unhealthy food, reading labels. I keep saying the same thing, but those are really the highlights. Yeah, that is it. Let me see if there are any questions. A banana is fine with postnatal drip. Okay, so bananas, yes, bananas are fine. It's more the dairy products, to my knowledge, that cause a lot of mucus. Cucumber contains mainly water, but they also have vitamins, and they also give you a bit of fiber, and they're definitely better than putting in a packet of crisps. So yes, cucumbers are good. Biltong for lunch packs. Yes, within limits. Biltong is just obviously quite high in saturated fat. And if you think about it, if you were to convert a steak into biltong, it would, shrink, and it would probably be very little biltong. So just be aware of, obviously it's good for protein and good for some other reasons, but you don't want to overdo the saturated fats with your children. So just a couple of sticks of biltong, not too much. Dried apricots, dried fruit, yes, it depends on what preservative is being used. And dried fruit, the only thing to be aware of, it's obviously a high sugar content, and you might eat 10 dried apricots, but you would never eat 10 apricots in one sitting, but you've actually had the sugar of 10 apricots in one sitting, if you see what I mean. So dried apricots are healthy, but don't pack 10, pack 2 or 3. So that's good. Honey instead of sugar on oats. Yes, honey is better than sugar, but honey also acts as a glucose and in like a simple carb in our body. So it's better than sugar because it's not as processed, but also within limits. And then which brand of peanut butter? Actually, I've been buying one from Pick and Pay. You can get them in the health shops, and for many years I bought them in health shops. I can't think of the name now, those blue labels, but those are quite expensive. And I've actually found that in Pick and Pay, in the aisle where the Bovril and Marmite and the other peanut butters are, you have those. It's a green container, and it also comes in a red one. That's a crunchy one, I think, and that's only got peanuts in it, and it doesn't have any other ingredients, and it's really inexpensive. So I've been buying that for years. Any other questions?
You've done you fit a lot. You have fitted a lot into an hour. Well done. You have spoken almost solidly for an hour.
Yes, I have.
If there are any questions, please pop them in the chat. We hope that this session has been very helpful for you. I know I've certainly learned a lot. I love the 80-20 rule because I think that's also realistic. I really identified with the modeling behavior. I think it's something that all parents are guilty of, me included. And the other thing that has actually been an experience of mine recently was most of us attending have probably grown up in environments where we've been forced to sit and finish what's on our plate and only been able to leave the table when our plate is clean. And how the thinking around that has changed significantly over the years. And we actually need to shift our understanding of what that means. Rather serve smaller portions, understanding how big or rather how small the stomach actually is, and rather have a second helping than have too much and then be forced to eat all that food on your plate. So maybe just give that some thought as well, parents. Inga, there are no more questions that I can see. Lucy has said she's got 2 very tricky eaters, so she will be in touch with you.
Yes, I forgot to say, if any of you want to chat to me, feel free to give me a call. If you want to set up a consult, that's also fine. You know, if you want me to work out an individualized eating plan for your family, you know, what works for you, I'm open for any of that. So please do give me a call.
Thank you very much for that. I will distribute Inga's contact details via the parent group tomorrow, along with this recording. But again, thank you very much for attending, everyone, this evening. It is 18:32, so I think we've done quite well. Inga, you've been outstanding. Thank you very much for your time.
And, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
And yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Good night. We will see you next time.